by Ram Trucks, built to serve.
Back here at Chris Broussard, we're running our fast break now. How do you factor in home court advantage for the top seeds if the league will return to a neutral Orlando site? Well, according to a Dave McMenamin report, we got some interesting options. So sit back and enjoy these guys. First up, the higher-seeded team would get the first possession of the second, third, and fourth quarters after the traditional jump ball to start the game. Nick, this could give the higher-seeded team an extra 1 to 2 possessions. Is that a big advantage?
It's a nominal advantage. It's an advantage worth between 1 to 2.5 points over the course of a game, typically, but I hate it. This, of all the ideas, this is the one I hate the most because this is the one that feels the closest to, we'll let the coach come out at halftime and shoot a free throw and the point will count. Like, no. We don't need this. I don't like it. This is, of all the ideas, I like this one the least. Scratch this one off the list, Wilds.
Yeah, I don't hate this idea, but it's got no juice to it. And I love this article by McMenamin. Just want to get that out of the way. On my report card, Broussard, I'm giving this one a C.
Go figure. Nick hates it. I love it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's the best idea of the bunch because it's not too much, but it is significant. And home court advantage is significant. 75% of the home teams have won their series in the playoffs in the last 10 years. So I like this one the best.
All right, moving on. Next up, how about this? The higher-seeded team designates one player to get 7 fouls instead of 6, or the higher-seeded team gets an extra coach's challenge. Nick, you like either of these anymore?
Well, I like the idea of players not being able to foul out in general. This is something I've talked with Daryl Morey a lot about. It should just be once you get your 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever foul, it should be an additional free throw for the opposition. You shouldn't take stars off the court. So that one's okay. The additional coach's challenge is an abomination. Coaches' challenges in the NBA are terrible. The review process is terrible. The review process in every sport except for tennis is broken irrevocably and should be thrown into the sea. So the first one I'm fine with. I think actually could be a good idea. The second one is absolutely god-awful, Wilds.
No, the tennis replay is fascinating. It happens in 30 seconds somehow. It's like better than the actual game. I love this theory. This is my favorite McMenamin proposal. He's reporting them. It's not his proposals, but now I'm giving him credit. Broussard, I'm giving this one an A+, and here's why. The stars aren't really getting in foul trouble. Like every once in a while it happen. I think you give this extra penalty to one of your role players and let them play super aggressive. I think this one has the chance to really change the flow of the game more so than any of the other proposals.
No. This one's not very good. As Nick mentioned, the coach's challenge, that's the last thing we need is another coach's challenge. And then as you said it, when's the last time LeBron James fouled out of a game? When's the last time he's been in foul trouble? I mean, come on. It's irrelevant for the stars. They're not fouling them out of games. And then if you give it to a role player, let's give, our big man an extra foul. Then the game threatens to become too physical, which is not what you want, and it's goon ball. Or it might be a disadvantage to you because your guy fouls an extra time, and it sends the opponent to the free throw line to get more points.
LeBron famously fouled out of a playoff game, I think his first year back in Cleveland. But the reason he never gets in foul trouble is because he's the smartest defender in the history of the league. Now, for a guy, and I know his team's not in the playoffs, Steph Curry, one of his most embarrassing moments in the NBA in his career, when he fouls out of a game, throws his mouthpiece at his fan, and his wife says the league is rigged. If he had his 7th foul there, could have been really useful for him. So for certain guys, that 7th foul would be useful, I do think, Shannon.
All right, let's keep it moving. I got another one for you. The next alternative would have the higher-seeded team send their actual home court to Orlando, like the floorboards, the signage, the restrooms. Probably not the restrooms. Nick, how much of an advantage would that be?
Oh, it wouldn't be an advantage, but this idea should be implemented post-haste for all teams. That way it kind of helps you in your mind. What game in the series are we in? We look at the court. We're like, oh, it must be game 3 because it's on the Magic court. I love this idea. I have no idea why they wouldn't do this no matter what for every series of the playoffs. I don't think there's any advantage, but aesthetically it would be so much more pleasing, except for Brooklyn. Brooklyn doesn't get to send their ugly gray home court. They shouldn't even have that at home. But for the other teams, they all get to send their home court. I love it, Wilds.
I love it too. I think for TV purposes, this should be a mandatory rule. Broussard, I'll take it a step further. Hey, send your banners too. Don't let it just be a floor thing. Send your banners. So you look up like, oh my goodness, we're playing the Lakers. Look at all these banners that are hanging up. So I'm all for it, Broussard.
You guys finally got one right. I agree. It just makes natural sense. I mean, you want to try to create as much normalcy as you can. So, yes, the team with the home court advantage should have their home court. It means nothing for the team. It will give you no advantage whatsoever. But for us fans watching it, it is great. And I like the banners idea or, whatever else they can add to make it look like, it's at this team's place.
All right. Next up, my favorite one. The playoff teams select which hotel to stay at in order of seating. Nick, you sleep on a pull-out couch. You're used to those accommodations. But how much could sleeping arrangements affect the 7-foot NBA player during the playoffs?
The pull-out couch line is a very odd one. I'm trying to fully process it in my head at the moment. But once I move past that, this is the best idea. And I will say this, and Broussard's going to get all histrionic and say I'm crazy. I know I'm right about this. I think if you ask teams, would you rather have an extra possession a game, as the first proposal was, or first draft pick of all the hotels, I think every team in the league would say, give us the hotels. They're used to 5-star Ritz-Carlton suites. And there is a big difference, if you've been to Disney World, between the very, very best of the resorts and some of the, call it more affordable resorts. So if you're telling me the Bucks can stay at, I don't know, Magic Mountain or Animal Kingdom, wherever it is, and meanwhile, the Grizzlies or whomever have to stay across the street from the Ramada Inn, I think this is a great idea. I think it actually rewards the teams the most of any of the ideas, and I think it'd be the most popular idea amongst the players. This one definitely should happen, and it wouldn't actually change the rules of the game at all, like the fouls or the challenge or the extra possession would. I think this is the best of all the ideas, and I want this draft televised. I want to see teams say, we select this locale. I want to see it. Go ahead, Wilds.
Okay, that's good. So it's the 4 seasons in the Grand Floridian. I think you were talking about the players staying at actual rides in Disney World, which I don't think would be a good idea. So it's the Grand Floridian and 4 seasons are the big ones. And here's why I actually think this makes total sense. If the season starts July 31st, Broussard, and then Woj reported it would go to October 12th, that's a month plus. That's a long time, and it's not just the beds. You're also probably getting access to better conference rooms. I don't know what the food is, but those are food differences. I think this is a huge, huge advantage, and I think the only fair way to do it is seating.
Look, I have to be honest. My kids are 22 years old. It's been decades or plus since I've been to Disney World, so I don't know what their hotels are like. But I would imagine that the majority of them are very good. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think the majority of their hotels are very good. None of them are going to have beds for 7-footers. The players always sleep horizontally or, at an angle as it is, even in the 5-star hotels. So I don't think this is a huge advantage. It's cute, and maybe it helps you a little bit, but it doesn't equate to home court advantage. I'm serious about this thing. Home court is huge.
Okay, I got to disagree with you there just for a second, Broussard. I just got back from Disney World before everything changed. All the hotels are great. Some are a little more great than others. Next up, the higher-seeded team gets to select their opponent. Nick, I know this one's a little far-fetched, but let's have some fun anyway. What are your thoughts on this one?
Oh, it might be far-fetched, but this is how all playoffs should work in all sports, in all circumstances. This is the best idea. This should be implemented across all leagues. You draft your opponent. And by the way, there could be some weird mind games going on. You remember a few years ago when the Warriors kind of punted on the regular season, didn't end up with the best record in the West? The Rockets did. And then at the very end of this regular season, Steph Curry got hurt and had to miss the beginning, or if not the entirety of the first round. I think it was the entirety of the first round of the playoffs. Under this scenario, then the Rockets could have said, give us Golden State now. We've earned the right. We're going to have to go through them anyway. So if we were just talking Lakers, Clippers. Lakers have second best record in basketball. I assume the Bucks would pick the Magic or something. The Lakers, I mean, the Clippers, Kawhi's going to have to have played for 2 straight weeks. Probably going to be exhausted, need some time off. The Lakers might just say, give me the Clippers now, before Kawhi is fully rested the way he needs to be. Like, it opens up so many doors of possibility, and it creates a legitimate they don't believe in us aspect for every team, because your opponent said, we want you. So I love this idea, and it truly does reward the best teams of the regular season who have accomplished the most wilds.
I love the idea too. McMenamin in the article wrote that doesn't have a lot of momentum, but maybe after your impassioned speech, Nick, the momentum will grow. Broussard, I think this is particularly interesting for this year because I don't think those later seeds